They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. My intentions of reading the selection by Kiera Cass probably erected a whole city in hell. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is rupkathabhattacharjeeofficial and you're watching my channel which is named after me because I lack creativity. So I read the selection by Kiera Cass so you don't have to. And honestly, everyone watching this video should thank me for putting myself through the immense torture cupcake that the selection by Kiera Cass is. If I had to use two different media examples to define the selection, I'd say it's Barbie Princess Charm School meets The Hunger Games by Susan Collins. And honestly, those two pieces of media should never be used in the same sentence ever. But it seems like Kiera Cass has found the perfect or rather imperfect balance between the two because the selection lacks the campy lightheartedness of the former as well as the political and media commentary of the latter. Let me just read the synopsis for you real quick. For 35 girls, the selection is a chance of a lifetime. The opportunity to escape the life laid out for them since birth, to be swept up in a world of glittering gowns and priceless jewels, to live in a palace and compete for the heart of Prince Maxon. But for America's singer, being selected is a nightmare. It means turning her back on her secret love with Aspen, who is a caste below her, leaving her home to enter a fierce competition for a crown she doesn't want, living in a palace that is constantly threatened by violent rebel attacks. Then America meets Prince Maxon. Gradually, she starts to question all the plans she's made for herself and realizes that the life she's always dreamed of may not compare to a future she never imagined. So, the original pitch for the selection defined it as The Bachelor meets The Hunger Games, and it is quite evident that the author was heavily influenced by the Hunger Games series, but this comparison between the selection and the Hunger Games is rather superficial and shallow because both of these books differ widely in terms of themes and atmosphere. It just feels like Kiera Cass tried to imitate the success and the fame that other authors have found in the dystopian genre without incorporating their themes or ideology into the novel itself. For instance, let's compare the titular selection to the reaping from the Hunger Games. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of the reaping, it is a lottery in which children from the age 12 to 18 are selected, and if one is selected, then they will be sent to an enclosed arena to fight to the death in a gladiatorial style battle, all for the enjoyment of the rich capitalists that live in a place called the capital. The titulus selection is a similar lottery in which 35 young women above the age of 18 are chosen at random and sent to the palace where they will be fighting to become the next queen of the country. Well, the Hunger Games has very high stakes because losing means dying an extremely brutal death. And even if one wins, it doesn't guarantee any luxury or victorious things are going to come to their future. But in this election, the stakes are, well, there are no stakes because these young women do not stand to lose anything. They only stand to gain fame and riches if they win this election. I went on this whole tirade because I thought that this comparison that the publishers have tried to perpetuate, that the selection is a new Hunger Games or the next Hunger Games, is just a marketing ploy rather than a genuine similarity in themes, writing style, atmosphere, or even conclusion. So let's break this book down into parts. The first one is world building, or well, the lack thereof. So, our story is set in the world of Elia, which is a futuristic depiction of the United States of America, which, after a series of war, has been reconstructed as a constitutional monarchy rather than what it originally was, that is, a constitutional federal republic. The state of Elia has a very stringent caste system where people are divided into eight different castes, all of them being allocated their own number and their predefined occupation. So the monarchy, along with the ones and the twos, forms a top of this hierarchy, while the fives to the eights form the bottom strata, and the three and the four are the middle class that bridge the divide or seemingly bridge the divide between the two upper and the lower chains of this hierarchy. Well, the lower castes live incredibly impoverished lives as they are entrapped in a cycle of poverty, and they are systematically withheld from breaking out of this cycle of poverty by assimilating wealth unless they have a breakthrough that is be deemed good enough to have access to life giving resources by the capitalistic system that they live in. There are also two tribes, the northerners and the southerners, whose main purpose here is to wreak havoc. We'll talk about those two tribes later on in this video. So, what really happened to the USA to turn it into such a dictatorial, dystopian society of Elia? Well, the book does explain it to us, but for me, I am not really satisfied.
When the US couldn't repay the massive debt, the Chinese invaded them. Unfortunately for them, this didn't get them any money, as the US was beyond bankruptcy. However, it did gain them American labor. And when the Chinese took over, what did they rename the United States? Yes, the American state of China had the appearance of its original country but was merely a facade. The Chinese were pulling strings behind the scenes, influencing any major political happenings and steering legislation in their favor. Sylvia walked through the deck slowly. I felt like I was a mouse in the sights of a hawk that was circling even closer. The AC planned to fight back against China, but was then faced with another invasion. Which country attempted to occupy the AAC then? Lots of hands went up this time. Russia, someone said, without waiting to be called on.
This entire history lesson is rather shoved down the reader's throat and not even done in a sensible or skillful manner at all. It is clearly shown that the author has a very limited knowledge of international politics or even the economy while writing it, because never really elaborates on why the USA was indebted to China on such a level that it couldn't even pay its debts back, or why the Nord, ANZUS, NATO, or the thousand other military alliances that the USA is in just sat back and watched while it was being conquered by China of all countries. For a book one in the series, the selection really puts no effort in creating a believable and intriguing world, and honestly, I have no problem in giving into the suspension of disbelief, but I'd rather do it for a world that is actually intriguing and incredibly done than something that reads like a 12-year-old self-insert fanfiction. If I had to sum up world building, I'd say that there is no world building. Now let's move on to the characterization. Our main character is quite aptly named America Singer. Why, you might ask? Because she lives in America and she is a singer. So America is a number 5 and she works as a singer as she is bound to do so by the laws of Elia. And her family lives in extreme poverty. After her brother abandoned their family and her sister was married off, their income depleted considerably, and this is a major reason why America's mother wants her to grab the opportunity of entering into the selection, because even if America doesn't actually become queen consort, she will be receiving cash benefits and her caste will be promoted. America, though, absolutely hates this idea because she is a main character and that is in the nature of main characters, but she also has another reason why. America has been breaking the myriad of laws that Elia has to be dating Aspen, a boy from a lower caste whose only two personality traits are his toxic masculinity and his obsession with America. When America informs Aspen of her mother's insistence on her joining this election, Aspen says that he wouldn't want America to be held back because of him and says that he will feel really guilty if America loses his chance at a better life because of him. So America enters this election and as the plot demands, she gets selected. Now Aspen's behavior does a total 180-degree at this point. So he gets really pissy and angry that America did like he asked her to do. And from the very beginning, I disliked both of the love interests because they had no personality and were absolutely one dimensional. Maxon, the prince for whom the selection is being held, is simply a character archetype rather than a well developed 3-dimensional character whose whole purpose in the novel is to be educated by America and have his eyes opened by her about the poor conditions that the people of his kingdom, the people that he is supposed to look after, live in. Maxon is constantly raging about how hard his life is and how difficult his life is because he's always been told what to do and he's not been taken seriously, despite the fact that he is quite literally the richest person in his country and upholds his country's system where the rich hoard their wealth and the poor quite literally have no medium of escaping poverty. Our main character, America, truly does have the potential to become an amazing character. She's kind, compassionate, empathetic to the struggles of people around her, and I think that for her to actually develop as a character, she needs to get rid of the men holding her down. Her story should not be tied to her male counterparts, which it is right now, and she does have this girl boss moment at the end where she goes on this whole tirade about how she's not choosing Aspen, She's not choosing Maxon, she's choosing herself, but at the stage her character is on, it doesn't make any sense for her to even come to that epiphany or revelation. There was absolutely no build up or satisfaction to the ending of book 1, and I felt that million other things could have been improved. In short, the only character who has any personality is America, and even then her role in the narrative is fully tied to the men around her, and that diminishes her entire personality. Let's now move on to number 3, which is the vilification of femininity or overuse of the not like other girls trope, which, if you're new to this channel, is the bane of my existence. The cognitive dissonance in this novel is insane. The author sets up the selection to be this feminist novel that will redefine the boundaries of feminism and femininity as a whole, but the narrative vilifies femininity or feminine people at every other turn. So there are these two characters, Celeste and Beriel, also two participants who are taking part in the selection and were chosen by the lucky draw kind of thing. I'm still not sure how that happens. So these two characters, since they are from the upper caste and since they are pretty feminine presenting, they are vilified by America and chided by America at every other chapter. America accuses them of being gold diggers at very first glance because of their unrelenting ambition along with their girly traits. Celeste is presented as this one-dimensional mean girl who only exists as a foil to America, and this character foil isn't at all interesting to read solely due to the fact that Celeste has no personality at all. I feel that if one has to do a narrative foil properly or even try to do a narrative foil, they need to make both characters on either ends a well rounded dimensional character. And even if it is a single POV book, the entire book is told through America's point of view, I still would have liked for Celeste to be given at least some modicum of depth to her personality. There's also this really weird line in this novel.
There was no mild way to put it. Her breasts were huge. They crept out of her strapless dress, tempting anyone to try and ignore them.
And this absolutely serves no purpose. I was questioning why was this even included? What was the purpose of this? Like, this is exactly the type of writing that would end up a male author in r/men writing women. Moving on to the next point, which is vilification of poverty. Coming back to the caste system and the cycle of poverty, in this novel there are two tribes, as I previously mentioned, the northerners and the southerners. So these tribes, they don't actually fall under the stringent caste system of Elia. So they completely exist outside Elian society, and Maxon uses this as a gotcha moment because the monarchy views these people as barbarians. So Maxon's on like, of course they're barbaric people, of course they are troubling us because they don't have anything to their name. Now, my sole question is, why do you think that is? Why do you think they don't have anything to their name? It's because of this awful system you perpetuate and your ancestors came up with. This entire historical thing and this poor attempt at world building makes me wonder what was going on in Kiera Cass's head when she was writing this novel, and what was going on in the heads of all those people who read this novel without batting an eye or using an ounce of their critical thinking skills. This is why we need to make kids read more in school. Prose of this novel is really simplistic and it doesn't even make any attempts at seeming more deep than it is. Honestly, you will find better written novels on Wattpad and those authors are doing it for free. Overall, my concluding points about this book are that it is completely skippable. Unless you're a masochist and like hurting yourself or you love literary drivel, then read this book. Who am I to rain on your parade? I genuinely do not get the hype surrounding this novel and even the praise surrounding it. Overall, this was zero point 0.5 stars of me. I didn't give it 0 stars because at some point it was entertaining. So this is pretty fast paced. I wouldn't say the pacing of this novel is bad. It's like one of those trashy telenovelas that you watch, except this one is 100 times more problematic. I don't see myself continuing this series solely because of the trashy writing, the poor characterization, and the absolute absurd use of politics that this book has done. At the end of the day, this is one book that I will just be forgetting about. I will not bring this book up ever again in my entire life. This gave me like three headaches, and if I have to tolerate another one of Kiera Cass's novel, I'd rather just lose the ability to read. That was my entire rant about the selection by Kiera Cass. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Probably every YouTuber that you watch tells you to do the same thing. So if you think that I'm more special than the rest, then do it for me, please. Thank you and goodbye.